Hello friends! So in this video, I am going to give you 8 different ways to increase the difficulty of your workouts, and these 8 different ways don't involve adding weight. Of course, adding weight is very beneficial, and if you can do that, definitely do. But if you are working out at home and you don't have weight and you don't have much equipment to use, there are ways to still make workouts challenging. I don't care how heavy you lift in the gym. If you push yourself and apply yourself, you can make at-home body weight workouts feel difficult. So you really can use this as a learning experience, because if you try out a body weight workout and you're like, oh, well, this is really easy, then chances are you don't know how to push yourself in the gym either, because a lot of workouts, honestly, when it comes down to it, they're however hard you want to make them. There's no such thing as, unless you're doing some just crazy, ridiculous cardio circuits or something like that. The main thing in making a workout easy or difficult really comes down to you. You need to push yourself during your sets. So if I have a listed rep range and it's squats for 20 reps, and you just do 20 and you just breeze through it and you're like, okay, no, you have to add reps. You have to do things to make it feel difficult. I know when it comes to my clients, I've actually found that my clients with a little bit more experience in the gym, my clients that are in a little bit better shape to begin with, actually have found the home workouts more difficult than the people who are not as experienced, because they know how to push themselves. So I have tried all of the home workouts I do, and if I apply myself correctly, they are like a 10 out of 10 on difficulty. So that's just a very important reminder. If you push yourself, you can make anything feel difficult. And obviously in this video, I'm going to give you the tips and tell you how to do that. And then I just want to throw in, make sure you're tracking everything you do, because that's how you improve. If you can't measure what you're not tracking. If you're just going through the workouts and not actively trying to do better than you did last time, you're not going to see the best results that you could. So that is both of these things are just so important. And not just for home workouts, but even when you go to the gym, you gotta be tracking, you gotta be making sure you're performing the exercises to the best of your abilities and always working to improve and do better. Just no going through the motions. You're always paying attention. Before I get into the tips, I want to point out too that it's just really great to have this knowledge, because throughout your life, there may be other times where you need to know how to make a workout feel more challenging without weight. So hopefully this doesn't happen, but if you get injured, even if it's just a little injury, it's nice to be able to refer to these types of tips, because then you can still train without going heavy and you can still feel challenged and let your injuries heal. It's also really handy if you're ever traveling and you don't have access to a gym, but you still want to work out. So just keep that in mind. This is a really great learning experience to expand your horizons and know how to push yourself without the way you're used to. So let's get into it. Okay, so if you do not have the option of increasing the weight you are using, the first thing you can do to make your exercises feel more challenging is to add reps. So even if the listed rep range says 20 reps, if you do your 20 reps and you're not getting to the end of the set and feeling pretty challenged, then just keep adding reps, because it doesn't matter if you did 20 reps if you're not feeling challenged. So again, if you don't have weight to add, keep adding reps. And that is how you're gonna make it more difficult. And the same thing goes for like time frames. Like if you're holding an isometric move and the listed time frame is a little bit on the short side, hold it longer till you're struggling. For these exercises, for these workouts, you can make them however difficult or easy you want them. It's really all on you. So if you're saying the workout is easy, that just means that you have to push yourself harder and add some reps, or that's one of the things. If you're adding reps, of course, as I always say, just make sure you're recording how many reps you're doing, so the next time you do this workout, you can progress from there. Okay, so the next thing you can do is improve the tempo or the quality of the rep you're performing. So for example, if you are doing a squat, you can control the lowering phase on the way down a little bit more. Or on a push-up, you can improve the quality of that push-up. You can get more control on your way down so you're not just like flopping down and up. Even say for some of the single leg exercises like the pistol squats, what you can do is work on having the lowering phase more and more controlled over time. Again, if you're really focusing on controlling that lowering phase and really squeezing, it's challenging. So keep that in mind. So improve the quality, just be really focusing on the entire movement, how you can make the form as perfect as possible, because if you don't have weight, that's how you make it more challenging. Okay, so for example, push-ups. So let's pretend that we're pretty good at push-ups. So in order to do them, we're just going down and up. Now notice how I'm kind of just like dropping. There's no ton of control. I'm just trying to get through the push-up, which is fine. But now, as I go, I can add more control to the movement in order to progress. So, for example, I might slow more and then up. Like right now, the quality of the movement is higher because I'm not rushing through it. And you can apply this to modified ones as well. So again, pretend they're hard for you. So you're just trying to do them fast to get through. And you're like, this is hard. Oh, push up. But then to make it, as you get used to it, you can say, okay, I'm going to control this movement a little more on the way down. Like control, control, and up. My knees are sliding. Control. Okay, so now for pistol squats. If I do them like this, it's not that difficult. So notice how I'm just going up and down, up and down. There's no sense of control. I'm not really engaging my muscles. I'm not squeezing. Okay, so to make the movement feel more challenging, what I'm going to do is make sure I'm really controlling on the way down. So rather than just plopping my ass down and standing back up, no. What I'm doing is, okay, whoa, see, I'm losing my balance because I'm just squeezing so hard. I'm lowering, squeezing, so I'm not full on sitting and putting my weight down. I'm keeping tension. My leg is still very much engaged, and then I stand. So, squeezing on the way down, thinking of pushing my hips back, squeezing, and up. And to increase the difficulty from there, you can get a lower platform. So if you have a lower chair, you could do the pistol squats onto that instead. You could also do these on stairs. If you do it on like the second last step, that's pretty low down. If you do it on the first step, that's like practically a real pistol squat by that point. So yeah, just keep in mind, really controlling, not just plopping down. So one more time, squeeze, and up. Okay, so here's how you would control the tempo for step-ups in order to make them feel more difficult. So rather than just going up and down like this, I'm kind of just letting my weight drop down. And if you still feel challenged doing it that way, then you can continue doing it that way. But if you're trying to increase the difficulty, what you want to do is focus on really slowing down the lowering portion. So when I step down, I'm gonna go slow. And really, again, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. So of course I'm gonna squeeze when I step up, But the part of this movement where you lose tension, you don't want to let that happen. So squeeze and lower. So it's almost like you're lowering, but you're pushing against lowering. So up, and then control on the way down. And up, control on the way down. Now, if you have a higher step, this is even more difficult. It actually gets really challenging when you perform them that way. So that's just another example of slowing down the tempo in order to increase the difficulty. Okay, so tip number 3 for increasing the difficulty of your sets. So I like to call this one use invisible weights. And put really simply, that's really just focusing on mind-muscle connection to the extreme, like not just a little bit, like major mind muscle connection, really squeezing as if your life depended on it. And again, if you do this properly, you can honestly make a no weight at all feel challenging. So for example, let's, like, we never do this exercise in our program, but let's just say that we're curling like upright like this. See, like that's like there's no tension. There's no mind-muscle connection going on here. But now, tighten. Now what I'm gonna do is tighten. See, look, already I'm shaking. And then I'm just gonna, so then it's kind of like you're pushing against the air. So that's what you wanna do for any exercise where you don't have weight. So say you only are using a water bottle for your lateral raises and it feels light. You don't wanna just be going, That's not hard, yeah. It's not hard, it's easy. So again, you squeeze. So what I'm doing is squeezing here, squeezing my lat, I'm just squeezing and bracing. Like you can see a difference literally just looking, like squeezed and then lower. And again, if you're doing this slowly and controlled while squeezing, it's challenging. And of course it's not the same as heavy weight, but it's enough that it can still stimulate the muscle and at least maintain your muscle mass if you don't have access to a heavier weight. So again, squeezing, and you can do this for any exercise. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be super slow. It's just very controlled. So to recap, you tense the muscle so much. Like basically you should start shaking. If you start shaking, then you know you're doing it right. So you squeeze and lift. And the entire time I'm just squeezing and I'm pretending that something is pushing against my arm. Like I'm pretending there's a force. That's essentially it. You're pretending that you're pushing against the air, which is why we call it invisible weights. So lift. See, you're squeezing so hard, it's actually like, I feel like, you know, when you pretend to lift a heavy weight and you're like, nee, that's what this basically is. But if you squeeze enough, it's hard. Whew, I'm out of breath. So squeeze, and lower. So yeah, and then again, I'm squeezing, and lowering, and just keeping that movement very controlled. So yeah, that is the third way, invisible weights. I'm sweating, I'm not even kidding. So I do not want to hear from anybody saying their weights aren't heavy enough because, well, you do in the long run need them, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, so the fourth way to increase the difficulty of your movement is to maintain constant tension and not lock out at the top of the movement. So for this, we're kind of talking about squat style movements. So squats, split squats, you can basically make these feel more difficult by just keeping the tension and not fully standing all the way back up and locking out, because when you do that, you just lose the tension, which is fine if there's heavy weight, but if we're trying to make it feel more difficult, we want to just keep that tension, we just want it going, we want to keep it going. So I'm going to show you some examples of what that looks like. Okay, so here's how you would do a split squat without constant tension. So basically I'm going down and then I'm standing all the way up. So if I had heavy weight, that could be challenging. But now what I can do to make this challenging with no weight is, so I'm gonna come down, and then at the top, I'm not gonna completely lock out. I'm stopping here. So, and at the top, I'm really squeezing. Even though I'm not fully coming up and locking out, I'm still thinking of squeezing. I mean, you squeeze throughout, but you don't want to just like bounce up and down. It's controlled, constant tension. And when we go through the full workouts, when I walk you guys through it, you'll really see even more how I apply that. And then for squats, it would be same idea. So rather than going down and then just coming up, you would go like this. So stay here, not fully locked out, really squeezing, and then down, squeeze. So it's kind of like you're just doing a fluid motion. There's no stopping. And again, right now, I'm almost applying the invisible weight technique. So this is, while I'm doing constant tension, I'm thinking about squeezing like crazy, and this is hard. My legs are burning. So that's what you want to do. So constant tension, down, up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Okay, so the next tip for increasing difficulty is actually doing the opposite. So that is coming to a dead stop. So I find this really applicable. Like it's a lot more difficult if you apply this to glute bridges, especially feet elevated glute bridges, because when you lower your hips down and you come to a dead stop and then you go back up, that's a larger range of motion to move through. So it does feel more difficult, and then you can't go off of the momentum. So for a thrusting type movement, a constant tension could also be challenging as well if you do it properly, but this is just another technique. So let's take a little look and demonstrate what that looks like. Okay, so for a dead stop glute bridge, it's great when it's a single leg. So here's how that looks. So I'm a little close here. I'm just backing myself up a bit. So you're going up and then lowering all the way. And when you do this, it makes most sense to kind of pause at the top and squeeze for a second. So, and again, control on the way down. A lot of these techniques are combining. So I think it was tip number 2, where we control the tempo, we can combine that with dead stop. So rather than just going up and then plopping down, we're controlling and then up. Now, if you do these can be constant tension and still be difficult. That's the great thing about this exercise is there's multiple ways you can make them difficult, but the dead stop variation definitely is a good option for increasing that difficulty. So squeeze and lower. Okay, so the next thing you can do is increase your range of motion. So this works for exercises like split squats, hip thrusts, even kickbacks, squats if you have 2 equally elevated surfaces. I'll show you some examples. For this, of course, if you're using household furniture, you do want to make sure it's something very sturdy, because it's not worth getting injured trying to make your exercise feel more difficult. But if you do have something that works, this is a great way to make things really challenging. Honestly, like, even if you do have weights on hand, it can be helpful to incorporate some low load, high rep, huge range of motion type exercises, even things like very, very high step ups. Now, I don't know, it depends on what you have in your house, because a chair, it wouldn't be a super high step up. If anything, you could do like a desk or something, but obviously it depends on what you have. You don't ruin the furniture, but the point is increasing your range of motion can make things dramatically harder. So let's go see how that looks. Okay, so if you want to make your deficit lunges feel more difficult, you can do them on the second last stair of a set of stairs. So you would lower down and up. Now, of course, you could use the first step, and then that's kind of like a normal height for a deficit lunge. But if you feel you need to increase the difficulty, that is how you would do it. And again, just like we've gone over, you want to keep it controlled on the way down. So no just like dropping. You step back, lower and squeeze, and then back up. Control. And if you're doing this high rep, you will die. You will die. Okay, so this is a deficit split squat. Now, it's a little bit different than the deficit reverse lunge because you're not really stepping backwards and down. Instead, you're just kind of going up and down with a larger range of motion. So by having both of your feet elevated, when you go to the bottom position of your split squat, it's deeper than as if you were just doing it without any elevation. So just obviously be careful. Don't do this on a chair that is unsturdy. If you feel like you're gonna fall, don't do it. Don't be silly. Use your head. But it's very hard. So if you can do it while feeling safe and balanced, give it a whirl. Give it a go. Give them the old razzle dazzle. So the next thing you can do to make an exercise feel more difficult is use multiple resistance bands at once. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do this. If you have just a couple mini bands, you can wear 2 of those at once. So you could either double them up literally just in the same spot, or you could put them in 2 different spots, like 1 band above your knees, 1 band below your knees. The other option is if you have a large resistance band, you can use that and a small resistance band at the same time. For certain exercises that will work. You could do that for a squat, you could do that for a glute bridge. Sometimes you have to get a little bit creative, but having multiple resistance bands at once could definitely make an exercise feel quite challenging. These are really hard in the sense that your knees are gonna wanna come in. When you are squatting, you need to be, so this is what starts to happen with these double resistance bands. This is bad. You want your knees out. This is almost like, I actually wouldn't even do this myself. This is actually almost too hard. Like, so, but if your bands are not as heavy, you might be okay to double up. But what you want to do is just fight against it with your knees. So if you have multiple bands, you can't say that these are not hard. Another way you could do this is just by having 1 under your knees, and then that's not quite as difficult. Still difficult, but not as difficult. Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, another way you can do this is having, if you want to use a large band, you can keep your mini band, and then for the large band, you can kind of put it around your neck, as I have here, and then you feel the resistance of this band at the bottom as you're pushing against it with your knees, and then on the way up, this band is resisting against you. So that's another way that you can double band it. Whew. And then if you wanted to do this for hip thrusts, what you can do is cross this. So your feet, or you're just putting your feet in the loops and then putting them over your hips. And then that's again multiple resistances because you're pushing, you want to push your knees out against this band, and then obviously this one you're pushing up against. So and those are examples of really great, challenging, double banded exercises. So you can also double up resistance bands for movements like seated abductors. Now, my bands are a little bit too heavy to double up for this movement, but So obviously, there we go, that's easy, blah, blah, blah. If you had like these types of bands, you can always double up with that, because that way you're getting a little bit more resistance, but it's still doable. Whereas if I am using both of these bands, for my resistance, like for the level of resistance these are, that's a little bit too much because I can hardly move. So yeah, that doesn't, if your bands are heavy, it might not work so well, but if they're light, it may be the perfect solution. Okay, and the 8th tip is to use a household item as a weight. For certain exercises, that's gonna work better, like as we mentioned earlier, the lateral raises, and it doesn't matter how friggin' light the item is, it's more so just so you have something to hold. So literally, if you have nothing at all and you're trying to do lateral raises, you can just hold anything and just like I said, use the invisible weights, squeeze, 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 and that is going to do a little something. Like obviously it's not the same as a heavy weight, but if you're in a situation where your options are limited, it is absolutely better than nothing. It's definitely better than nothing. And especially if you don't understand this concept of how to squeeze like this and really engage your muscles, then it's something you should be doing, because when you do get back to the gym and are able to lift heavier, that's going to benefit you because you're going to have better mind muscle connection and you're going to be engaging your muscles more. So take this time to learn how to do that, because that's just going to help you more in the long run. This is like kind of just going off onto a different topic, but a lot of these things are beneficial in the long run. The thing is, sometimes when you're limited, you can learn techniques and things that are actually really great that you'll want to take into your routine even when you do go back in the gym. I know for me, over the past year, I've had some injuries on and off, and I've tried different methods of training. I've incorporated, like, obviously still do heavy stuff, but things like, say, the increased range of motion with low weight, I've been doing those in my routine regularly, and it's hard, and it's good to have different types of ways of training and learning how to do that. So stay flexible. Don't think just because I don't have heavy weight, I can't have a good workout. No, you can. I obviously have spent a lot of time telling you guys that lifting heavy is good and it's beneficial, but it doesn't mean that there's not a way to still have a good workout and to push yourself. It really comes down to knowing how to push yourself. If you are finding home workouts very, very easy, then that means you weren't pushing yourself hard enough in the gym to begin with. So really, really look at that and think, am I actually pushing myself, or am I just going through the motions? Because again, when you do go back into the gym and you do start and you are able to lift heavier again, you're gonna get way better results if you can learn how to push yourself under these current circumstances. So I guess I went off on a little tangent there and I didn't really finish what I was saying. So you can use a water bottle, bleach bottles, laundry detergent bottles, a backpack, say for things like squats and lunges. And the backpack, obviously, you can put stuff in it. You can put books. You can even put water bottles filled up. You could put the detergent bottles in the backpacks. Just, again, get creative. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just make sure you're applying all of the tips I've mentioned, and you can definitely get a good workout. And I'm trying to think if there's any other items. Yeah, those are the best ones, I would say. The detergent bottles, the bleach, the backpack, or like if you have a gallon water, well, I said that weirdly, a gallon water or a milk gallon, just anything like that, just use it, get creative, use some creativity. Okay, so for household items, it's pretty easy. You can use laundry detergent, you can use bleach bottles, so this could be something like lateral raises. Obviously, if you don't have 2 bottles the exact same weight and size, don't use 2 different things. You could just do, my hair just went in my mouth. You could just do one side at a time, so like this, la la la. You can also even hold these for certain exercises. You can hold it for like lunges, you could hold it for step ups, for squats, even for like hip thrusts, you could place this on your hips. Obviously it's not super heavy, but it's giving you a little bit of resistance. And then another great option for a household item is using a backpack. Again, you can do this one. You can do squats, you could do lunges, step ups. Again, like I said before, you could also place this on your hips. Backpacks are great too, because you could even do like rows with them with one arm. So there's a little bit, it's pretty versatile. It's a pretty versatile household item. Woo! Okay, and those are the 8 tips for increasing difficulty. So make sure you refer, I have this in the workout ebook, so look at that as well if you need to refresh your memory. And just remember that if you're really applying yourself, you can make any of these workouts feel difficult. And this can also be applied just throughout your fitness journey for the rest of your life. There's been times where I've been injured and I've had to apply some of these things, and it's awesome just to know how to do this, because it's ways to challenge yourself without using weight, because sometimes that does happen. Even if you go on vacation, if you're traveling and you want to work out and you don't have access to weights, now you have these tools and you know how to push yourself. So it's very important to learn. It's a good learning experience. And that is the end of this video. If you are somebody who has already signed up for the challenge, I am so excited. You are going to kill it and see fantastic results. If you have not signed up yet, it's not too late. I mean, it depends on when you're watching this video, but check the link in the description box below to find out if you are still eligible to participate in this challenge. And that is it. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.